Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a deep dive analysis on what I spent my money on in terms of food for the month of June. I did this the previous month. I downloaded all of my spending from Amazon, Waitrose.com, which is where I buy my groceries online, and from my bank, from my online bank account, to see where all my money was going in terms of those kind of three main areas. I put it in a spreadsheet and I went through that whole process and did a video on this. I'll link to that video here, but you may recall that I far exceeded my monthly budget. I'm gonna pull it up so we can just quickly review how that month went. So I'll open up the May one. Okay, how does that look? Big enough? 150. Okay, so you may recall that our monthly budget for groceries is £430 a month. This is roughly £100 a week for the two of us. Some people think that that's a lot of money. Some people think that's not enough. Obviously, it's completely dependent on your income and how much money you bring in and all of the outgoings that you have every month. So I think £100 a week per person is a reasonable amount of money to spend. So I've set that as my budget, probably rather ambitiously, because as we see for this time period of middle of April to middle of May, I spent £610, well exceeding my budget by 42%. So obviously this is problematic. I have, financial goals that I want to attain, and part of reaching that is keeping all the areas of your spending in control. This is the one area that I routinely have a hard time staying within the budget. You may recall that one of the areas that I had an issue with was this NA. So most of the spending I do on food is either on an online grocery store like Waitrose.com or Amazon, in places where you have a digital copy of where that money is allocated, like what categories it's allocated to. It became apparent to me that we were doing a lot of our spending, £215, 35% of that overall monthly budget, on things that we could not account for. So that was like us running out to the grocery store and buying things but not keeping an itemized receipt for it or not keeping track of it. So one of the strategies that I implemented, and it's going really well for us, is we have now started keeping all of our receipts. This is an envelope. It's actually getting quite grimy because it sits under a container in our kitchen top drawer, but it's like the first thing that you see when you come in our flat, and we keep all of our grocery receipts in there. So these are receipts of anytime we run to the grocery store, even if we go to Superdrug or the chemist or something, we are starting to put our receipts in here. It's a great way to keep track of all your spending, and once you start doing it, it just becomes routine. I sat down for a couple hours and I entered all of those receipts into a spreadsheet, and I downloaded all of the data from our business or from our bank account as well as from Amazon and Waitrose, and I created a new spreadsheet for the month of June. I use Excel, Microsoft Excel for this, and I have it for Mac, Microsoft Excel for Mac. You can use Google Drive, which is free. They have an Excel kind of spreadsheet. It's not really Excel, it's Google Sheets, but it's the same format. I find this a super useful way for me to analyze and manipulate the data, but you could do this with pen and paper if you were so inclined. Just need to make sure that all the columns line up. So these Waitrose store ones, that was from a receipt from our envelope. I put down the date, where it was from, what the item was, the cost of the item, and then I went through and I categorized everything. So this is very similar to the previous month, and again, I will link to that video and that process somewhere here in this video or in the description below, because that I walk you through that process step by step in more detail. So check that out if you want to see how that's done. And some people are going to be put off by the prospect of doing this amount of work, and I totally appreciate that. But if you are having trouble staying within your budget, if you are, routinely going into debt, whether you're using credit cards or personal loans or whatnot, and you just have a hard time figuring out where all your money goes, story of my life, I've been there a million times. So this is the stuff I do now, just so I'm totally clued up on where my money's going. And it gives you a really strange sense of empowerment, because even though sometimes the information that you see on the screen might not be pleasant. It's that initial kind of ripping off of a Band-Aid or the initial just viewing of it and knowing what the number is. And as soon as you know, that fear starts to kind of melt away, and then you just start to understand where your money's going. So you line up everything in their columns, their respective columns, and you click a new tab on the spreadsheet. And again, this is how you do this in Excel for Mac. It might be a little different on PC, but it'd be generally kind of the same. Go Data, Pivot Table, and then you highlight all the columns. You click OK. And then you're going to want to basically put the categories, like what you spent the money on in the row area, and you want to put the cost of all those items next to them. So we're going to do category. I'm going to move that to the row labels, and then cost. And you see how this is coming up as like 5, 9, 6. That's the count. That's the default setting. I'm going to click on the I and change that to sum. That will tell us the total cost of each category. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to go Data, Sort, Descending, so we can see like the highest category to the lowest. And then I'm just going to format this so we know that we're working in pounds. Currency, pounds. Okay. So the grand total was 611 pounds. Eerily close to the previous month. Let me see. 610 pounds. Like, I don't think you can get more precise, really. So I kind of laughed when I saw this figure. Like, I'm trying to reduce the amount of money I spend, and I spend almost the exact same. But there are some slight changes that I'm going to just kind of remove. To do that, I'm just going to take the total, and you hit equal sign. Let me just make this a bit bigger so you can see it. Maybe a bit bigger. So, and this is basic kind of formula within Excel. I find Excel actually is quite easy to use when you just stick to the basic plus, minus, subtract, divide, multiply. So you hit enter, select the grand total, minus, what were the things that don't really count as food? So household goods, that's not really within my grocery budget. That's a separate budget, so I'm going to remove that. Cosmetics, that has its own separate budget as well. Gifts, yeah, for sure. I have my own budget for that. And then I'm going to remove alcohol because that falls within our entertainment budget, so that's not technically groceries. So this is the total amount I spent on food. Total amount, oops, 544 pounds. So a slight improvement on last month, but still not within the ambitious monthly budget that I want. So like my desired budget is 430 pounds. Again, that's 100 pounds a week for 2 people. There's 4.3 weeks in a month. That's how that's calculated. So how much over am I over? I'm going to do that just by going enter, and you put in brackets to do a basic arithmetic calculation first of the total that I spent, subtract what the budget is, so that's the difference as to how much I'm over. And then you just divide that by the budget, and that will give you a number. And I'm just going to click on that and go Format, Cells, and I'm going to turn that into a percentage. So we're almost 27% over budget. So again, that's not fantastic, but it's a lot better than 42%. So we have improved. But I'm just gonna also highlight this and put this in a chart format so it's easier to read. So you just highlight all of the items and you go charts. And I like to do it in a pie chart. Select pie. And I like to have a percentage breakdown so I can see. I'm just gonna make this a bit bigger. So there we go. So what did we spend the majority of our money on? Meat and poultry. Again, that was because we very much were doing a low carb diet, and that kind of diet requires you to eat a lot more protein, lean protein, and obviously there's no greater source of protein than animal protein. Then followed by veg, fish and seafood, fruit, treats. Now, you may recall that one of the areas that we were spending a lot of money on was treats. I called it dessert in the previous video, but I recategorized all these items because I thought, there were things that I bought this month that technically didn't count as dessert. And last month, I kind of look at dessert as being like vegan desserts or baked goods or things that kind of cost a lot of money to make. So I changed the cost or the category to treats. And I'm just going to compare the two so we see if I've reduced that budget. So last month I spent 46 pounds on treats. That was a big percentage of our budget, and treats, though are important to have to live a happy, balanced life, they should not be taking up a huge percentage of our overall food budget. It's not food that adds any nutritional value to your health. So we spent 46 pounds last month. This month, what was it? Treats. 33 pounds and 60 pence. So that was good. We reduced the amount that we spent on treats, and that is below meat and poultry, veg, fish and seafood, and fruit. So that pleases me. So we're below in terms of our overall expenditure as well as in the area that I thought we needed to reduce. I feel fairly positive about this budget and where our money was going. I feel like these are reasonable categories to be spending our money on, and this seems a lot more sensible to me. So I'm pleased. I feel like we've improved, even though we haven't really, reached our 430 pound a month target. We're still down compared to last month. We don't have a huge percentage of our grocery budget that is unaccounted for, like this 215 pounds. We know better about where our money is going, and we have kind of like a more comprehensive overview of what takes the most out of our budget. This was for the month of May and June. I'm going to do one probably to wrap up August, because July is just going to be a bit of an anomaly because we're on holiday. But yeah, I really enjoy doing this. If you think this is really tedious and this is something that turns you off, obviously by no means do it. But if you're really kind of struggling to get on top of your spending, this is an excellent way of doing it. Whether it's food, whether it's clothing, whether it's trips to like Home Depot or Canadian Tire or Target. If you have a financial goal and you want to meet it, the best way to get there is to really understand where your money is going, so you can sort of trim back the fat and pull back spending on different areas. And I really find this exercise super helpful for me. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to get notified of whenever I post a new video like this, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.